So you're gonna love Dead Belt if you like the Alien franchise and Weyland Yutani, who does not care about the human cost of whatever they're doing. You're gonna love Dead Belt if you like Mothership, because it is a lethal, vaguely survival horror flavored experience that you can play when you're between sessions with your Mothership game. It's a game that you'll like if you are into The Expanse, that kind of hard Scrabble on the edge. Like there's a reason we call our folks Belters after all.
It is fantastic to get a chance to bring back Navi and Shawn Drake to the show. In this, their second appearance, we learn how and why they brought printing in-house. We dive into their Fey post-apocalyptic game, Hedge. We break down Skyworthy, a solo RPG from them, and how that led to their current project on Kickstarter, Dead Belt. Stick around until the end when we unpack how they work as a team, how they complement each other, when it works, and when do they lock horns. The link to the Dead Belt Kickstarter is in the notes. Scroll down and check it out. This episode comes to your ears free because of the support of patrons. A big thanks out to some of our newest floor heads: Dev Dragon, Robert Valdez, Christian, Derek Waite, Hollow Man, Zemislaw Ryba, James Nevitt, and Steve Maroney. All right, sit back, relax, and enjoy my time with the Drakes.
Do you love to unplug and play games around the table? Greetings, friends and floorheads, to Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. If you love tabletop gaming, you are in the right place. Listen as Craig delivers in-depth discussions and interviews with game designers, creators, insiders, and experts. Learn from the people making and playing the role-playing, miniature, and board games you love.
Howdy friends, Craig here. Today we are talking to Navi and Shawn Drake of A Couple of Drakes, the makers behind Court of Blades, Dead Belt, Disaster Wing, Skyworthy, Hedge, and many other games. Navi and Shawn, welcome back to the third floor.
Thank you.
We're super happy to be here.
So, and I because the only other repeat guest that we've had on this show so far, it really doesn't count because it was a rip of a stream, right? So technically John's been on twice, but one was just the audio from his stream. So you guys are actually the first return guest to Tabletop Talk, which means nothing.
Wow.
That's
that's an honor. You don't understand. Like, first of all, like, you know, John being the only other returning guest, like we got some symmetry here because, you know, we aired right after John's episode, which made me really nervous.
Did you really? I didn't think I realized that. Oh, that's funny. So
there's an odd kind of symmetry there.
So for those of you listening, really, I mean, the first time we met was really the first time we interviewed on the first interview, and we've become fast friends since, which is something that I am very, very happy about. And I think that you guys have been wonderful for my show, and I want to start by thanking you guys for being such promoters of the work I do.
Well, thank you for having us, letting us take up your airtime.
Yes, so valuable. So valuable.
It is, Craig.
It is.
Like the amount of people who have found us because you gave us some oxygen. That'd be great. Yeah.
Good. And for those of you listening, you got to go back. You got to go listen to that first episode because we're not going to talk about any of that stuff, right? We're going to talk about new stuff. So normally I subject my guests to how did you find tabletop gaming? We've already had that story. But a lot has happened since we've talked last. So I want to talk specifically about you shedding capitalism and bringing all production in-house. So I want to talk about your printing fetish.
When did you get really punk rock?
Let's start with when that first came into play, when the two of you decided, you know what, I bet we can print this stuff on our own. Who said it first?
You want me to?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember how this started.
I remember the exact moment when this idea kind of crystallized, because I remember we had just gotten word back from our illustrator that was through Comida de Papel, our Spanish localizer translator, amazing team over there.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, it's done. We got all the illustrations, everything is ready to go. And I'm like, awesome. And I pulled up our print order to Mixam because I had it saved on my phone. And this has to be like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I have just rolled out of bed. I found this waiting for us in our business email, and I just plugged the numbers in like usual. Okay, we have this many books that we need to print. And we have a spreadsheet. Like Navi is our spreadsheet queen. She handles all the finances and the budgetary concerns and everything. And there was a number that I was expecting, with maybe 20, 30%, because things change. And I know it's in the middle of a pandemic and a recession and all kinds of other stuff. There's all kinds of factors, but I plug it in and it's 300% of that number.
Oh.
It happened right as the prices skyrocketed. There was a moment in the U.S. where everybody's prices just doubled overnight, and we hit that bubble. So we were expecting a print run that would run us about $15,000 is what we were expecting. And we go to Mixam, and at the time, I think it was saying something to the tune of $40,000 for that print run. We reached out to other companies as well, though. Mixam's not the only one. So we did reach out to other ones, and we ended up finding a very good print company. I think it's, I could be messing this up, but I think it's Taylor Prints in Dallas, Texas. Really good prices, actually still really aggressively good. But we found them a little too late. By then we had already reached out to so many people. They had gotten back to us with very high numbers. We ended up reaching out ultimately to a printing company that came highly recommended, located in Estonia, for that. But I'm getting a little bit off track because I know this is about why we started printing in-house, but this was kind of the disaster that led to it, where in having to reach out to overseas to do our printing, the transit time is massive. So once again, it increased our already blown timeline. And I had that little bit of rebellion of I can't deal with this. I'll just do it myself. So we started looking into what it would take. Now, clearly, we still don't have the in-house capabilities of doing hardcovers, which is what Court of Blades is. So we would still have to reach out to another printing company for hardcovers. And like I said, we've actually found one now in the United States that is closer in line with what we were expecting paper shortage blow up, right? So we have that now for future hard prints, but for zines, staple bound, pure bound, soft covers, we have the capability of doing that now in-house, which means that for our smaller projects, which we're very prolific in, we can very comfortably produce those and send them out and not have to worry about having to order in bulk and, these timelines and other people messing up our timelines and transit mishaps. And there's so much that can go wrong and has gone wrong. Right. I think Court of Blades might actually be cursed because we finished, produced, and then distributed another game, and then had it translated into Spanish. They produced it and also distributed it in the time that we've been waiting for Court of Blades to ship. So it is my cursed game. And that is why we are printing in-house now, because I really don't want to find myself in that situation again if I can avoid it.
But I don't want to gloss over this because, keep in mind, this is not buying a Canon printer, right? and you're just, Control P, right? This is a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother craft. It's a whole nother hobby. So you get the idea in your head. How do we do this in house? What do you do next? Do you go to YouTube? Do you start what do you do?
So that's exactly what we did. I'm a big crafter, so not everybody knows that about me, but I'm really into crafty stuff. I make a lot of paper crafts and jewelry, and it's just something that I enjoy doing. So I kind of already have that bug. So we jump on YouTube and I start doing my research, and I'm the queen of going down rabbit holes. So I'll have an idea in my head and I'll spend a week really figuring out how to make it work. And then by the end of the week, I come up for air and I decide whether or not it's a good idea.
Then she submits the budget. She makes these great points. She walks me through all these videos. She like curates clips for me. And then like she watches my reaction. She watches my reaction through these videos and everything. And she watches me slowly like, oh, okay. No, this is making a lot of sense. And then she knows she's got me. But we both really enjoy collecting hobbies just in general. Like we both make stuff, build stuff, do stuff. Like that's always been kind of who we are. And the more kind of punk rock we get with this, the more we get to make sure everything that leaves our business is us on display, right? And so that's kind of an empowering journey to like the moment I held Quarter Blades, the proof copy in my hands, like it was a real thing. And ever since then, I've basically just been kind of chasing that feeling. And so now every time a new product rolls off the assembly line after we staple it and laminate it and everything, like it's the whole process. I've been there when it was a blank Google Doc, and now here it is in my hands, and it's a cool feeling.
Now, the same shortages that, the printers are encountering as far as, why is I mean, they didn't do, 300% markup because they got bored that day. I mean, there's real shortages. How are you guys navigating that? Because you now have to buy the raw materials and stuff like that. So how are you handling that?
So it's actually a little bit, it's a little bit different, more different in a weird way. So the paper that they order in professional print shops are these big, specialized, large format pieces of paper that they run through very different machines, and it comes through and it gets chopped down to size. So they'll print many pages on a single page, for instance, and then they'll chop it all down and it gets assembled. So that paper is where the shortage is, because that's a specialty paper. Most people are going digital now. Books are kind of going the way of the dinosaur. I think you got companies like Ingram Spark really hoovering up the lion's share of paper these days. But at the other end of the spectrum, where a home printer is, you're really picking up paper that was made for printing and for consumers. And because, especially in the United States, you're really not going to run into that same shortage when it comes to office supplies. We love our office supplies. So we generally are able to get what we need in bulk. There are some specialty things that I order in that I have to be careful about because they go out of stock frequently. Like cover stock is a little bit tricky because, again, that's a specialty paper. But our interior papers, we have 2 or 3 different ones. Like I have my favorite, but then I have my backup plan. So we're really haven't had any problems with even ordering in tons of that stuff because it's considered an office supply.
We approach it kind of from the same perspective that you do in like engineering or aircraft maintenance or anything like that. Like 2 is 1.
1 is none.
So we have so many reams of paper that we've gotten just to like give the feel test and everything, and finding our favorites and our silver medals, and then like the one that if everything's on fire and we have to fulfill something, like this is one that we still feel good putting out as an alternative, just to make sure that the timeline's still there. Because a lot of times, especially for fulfillment on like crowdfunding projects, like we want that in your hands as fast as possible.
Right.
But even so, like just to make sure that there are no corners cut unless we cut them. That's one of the cool things about doing it ourselves, is that we can relentlessly pursue quality.
So we share this, right? This where you get an idea in your head, and I don't know, and it sounds like it might happen to you the same way it happens to me, which is you see something and you go, I think I can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you have my hubris, you go, and I think I can do it better, right?
Yes.
So then I do exactly what you did, Navi. I just go down this rabbit hole. I bury myself. My wife forgets my name. And then I come out of it and, I know stuff. But what is fascinating to me is shit I know now that I didn't know before, and stuff that I really care about. So as a quick example, 4 years ago, I knew nothing about audio editing. Now I've got a fetish about audio, right? Like if I listen to a podcast now and it's not like good audio. And then I stopped listening because I can't do it anymore. But 3 years ago, I didn't care. Whatever. I listened to whatever
for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And now that I get into video editing and, producing like After Effects and stuff, I knew nothing about it before. And now we see it a whole bit. So for printing, what did you not know 2 years ago that you obsess about or really notice a lot? So what changed?
So I didn't care about printers in general at all. Like if it printed and it looked decent, I was happy. But now I've become a snob. I have my favorite printers. We recently splurged on like a $1,200 printer to add to our printer collection. I'm currently eyeballing yet another printer that's just a little bit different than the printers I have.
It does a different thing.
They have special jobs. They have names and jobs, and so I've become a little bit obsessed with printers. That's probably the weird thing.
I'll get you your knit cap and your IPA, because at this point, like, you're basically like a printing hipster.
I am. Like when I look at a printer now, I'm like, it's Mega Tank, but it's not a 6-color process. I don't know if I can.
It doesn't have gray.
Words you didn't know went together like 3 years ago.
How are we supposed to make colors that pop without gray?
Exactly.
Oh, it's so funny.
Oh, my pastels are going to be so washed out.
Can't have that.
But what happens what happens when you guys buy somebody else's zine and it arrives? Is there an evaluation that happens? Before you would just open it up and read the content, do you find yourself like in a bookstore looking at paper and going, oh, this must be a so-and-so, or?
Yes. But that started before zines, because it was when we were getting ready to print Court of Blades. I was obsessively going through everyone's indie books, I was checking like how's their formatting, are they following the traditional rules of book publishing, and surprisingly a lot of big titles actually do not follow the rules. Like I see a lot of big glaring mistakes that makes me go, ooh, that's okay, well, this was not put together by a professional. So
right.
So I started that particular bit of brain weasels a while ago, but now it's continued on to where I pick up something, and sometimes I pick up something and the quality is so, this is how snobby I've become. I pick up something and the quality is so low that I'm a little offended.
Like me with the podcast, right? Like I hear bad audio and I'm like, have some respect for your audience.
Well, sometimes you pick something up and it's like, ooh, this is kind of cool. How did they do this?
Yes.
And those are the kind of things that like immediately, like we sit down and there's almost like a clinical dissection of a book as soon as we get one. It's like, ooh, this is kind of cool. Is that UV spot treatment there? I think that might be UV spot treatment there. Is this embossed or is this debossed? How do they do this?
It's so cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really
So you
cool
breezed
stuff.
over something. I'm going to come back to it, Navi. Is you said, sometimes you'll see a glaring something in a layout and it'll make you say, obviously a professional did this. You got to give me some examples of what that means. So, and I don't call anybody out, right? But
I would never do that because they would burn me.
Well, I mean,
but can you give me an example of somebody who knows what they're doing, right? And has an eye for this something? What is stuff that you have seen where you went, ugh?
So some of the big ones are just mistakes like not checking to make sure that your page numbers are starting on the right page. So if you don't actually go in and change it, it'll start page number 1 on page number 1, which is usually your copyright, not actually page number 1. So by the time you get to page number 1, your book is starting on page 5 and it looks messy, right? So that was one. Other ones were the lines of the text. When you are laying out, you snap them to a grid so that they always align perfectly. And if you don't snap them to a grid, then the lines here and then there's lines here and they don't meet up and they look very messy. And it's maybe something you don't notice until you're looking for it. But as soon as you know that it's a problem, you can't
stop seeing it.
I mean, there are a couple of books that I've picked up that still have widows and orphans. The little dangling, like there is one word from the last sentence on this fresh page, and that, like, I'm not even like a huge layout snob. Like my layout department, she's won that right, but I'm just a lowly writer. So, looking at books and the one thing that she's like, okay, we have to make sure that there are no widows and orphans in our manuscript. Help me out with this. Like, that's my job. I can do that. And when I see one in a produced book, I'm like, oh no! It like there's a visceral reaction now. It's super weird.
And another one of my bugaboos. If you're using like InDesign, for example, its natural justification settings are really bad. It'll just when it breaks the word in half, it'll do it to everything, like indiscriminately. If you don't go in and manually give it parameters that are a little bit more appealing, it can look really sloppy. So sometimes you crack open a book and you're like, there are 72 hyphens in this paragraph. I cannot deal with this.
Yeah, and please stop. What was it justifying so that the right and the left? Please stop doing that.
Oh no,
whoever's doing that, just stop it. Just stop it. These aren't newspapers; those are done. It's over. Stop it. All right, so we talk about printing, and I think the upsides are obvious, right? So one, it's cheaper from a cash flow perspective for you guys to print your own zine than to have somebody else do it. So there's an upside.
We have more time.
You guys
money,
have
so.
That's nice.
Quality control, that's under yours as now, and so on and so forth. Obvious downsides are time and effort and investment. What's the hidden downside? What is something that you realize now is more of a challenge than you expected, or when you're having one of those days, you go, damn it, we should have just had someone print this.
Have we had one of those days?
Okay. No, I think I have something.
Okay.
So I haven't had a day where I'm like, I wish somebody else printed this, but what I have run into is that with the home printing setup, even with bringing on a faster printer and having multiple printers running, we run into a time gate. They don't print fast. They don't print super fast. So I'm having to get up and check my prints constantly throughout the day, all day. And if I'm doing a really big print run, like for instance, I just finished all of the Court of Blades zines not too long ago for the Kickstarter, and it was several hundred zines.
We have a shelf.
So I have them piled up waiting for the books to arrive. So it was several hundred zines, and I was only able to do about 10 to 20 a day realistically. So it was for weeks a nonstop progression of just going through and making these things. And the time gate really, that's the hardest part. You have to be there all day long to babysit the printers because sometimes printers will jam, they'll misprint and like ruin a bunch. My favorite printer is actually notorious for that. It'll misprint in the middle, and just by the time you caught it, you've lost that hour of printing. It's brutal. So that's probably the hidden downside is babysitting your printers is like a second job.
It's a job, yeah.
So I never thought about storage though, right? So like if you guys have someone print, like Court of Blades is going to show up and for a limited set of time, there's going to be a storage issue, right? When all of those books show up and all the, but it's a through, right? Whereas if you're printing on your own, like you print that batch and it's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
So how did, I mean, obviously you had to find room for these printers, right? What do you do about the storage issue? Like where do you store things as you're printing?
So right now, you can't see it, and they wouldn't be able to see it anyways because we're here on the podcast, but we have an office that has like these huge workbenches that are made for woodworkers, like the big giant workbenches. We have a couple of them sandwiched together that make a giant island in the middle of our office, and that's where we keep all of the printers, and it's got shelves and drawers, and so we have lots of room to store paper and whatnot, but we've co-opted other rooms because we have, by necessity, had to steal from every space in the house. So in our foyer, it's flanked by two very large bookshelves. Those are now just stacked completely full of reams of paper and various other necessities, paper cutters, things like that. Besides our guillotine, which is huge and sitting over there. Like there's other more different paper cutters. And then we also have a wall of bookshelves in the dining room that is what I ended up using for all of the zines and things that are waiting to be sent out, whether it's Court of Blades or Skyworthy. They're actually stacked in there because it has the glass doors, which keeps dust off of them, which makes me happy because I have OCD. So they've been turned into like zine holders. So our bookshelves, they're kind of strange.
What everybody may not know is that we uprooted our lives. We were in Texas the last time we talked. We're in Pennsylvania now. We bought a decrepit like 1900s like
1900 perfect
1900 the year, yeah. a 1900 like mansion that had fallen into disrepair for like a song and a tap dance. And like, as we've been refinishing it, every time we finish or clean out a new room or refinish a new room, it becomes more zine storage. So it's really worked out.
We've just been flowing from room to room.
You guys are roommates with zines.
Well, it was zines or ghosts, and it's both. So that's okay.
The zines bought the house, right?
That's right.
It's the house that RPGs built.
Oh, that's amazing. So guys, the Insider Insight series is my opportunity to sit with designers, developers, artists, writers, and creators and learn how they approach their work. I try to understand their process, inspiration, and methods for crafting their creations. And that's what we're going to do with the Drakes today. So, as you guys know, because you are the coolest people I know, I taught a class, and considering this is being recorded days before release, normally that's not the case. So it was this past weekend, right? And I put it out there to say, hey, anybody out there in the community, if you would like me to feature your game, all I ask is for it in print. You guys, I didn't hit the period on the sentence, and I got a message from you guys because you're great. And so you sent over Hedge. Now, for listeners, you know that we already talked to Spencer Campbell not too long ago. I think it's 5 or 6 episodes ago. We talked to Spencer. But Hedge was my first exposure to the Lumen system and whatnot. So let's start by talking about what Hedge is. So the little blurb you have on Hedge is, once you were merely human. Once the Fae would have looked at you only as a thing to be bent or broken or eaten. Now the Hedge has chosen you to stand, fight, and shine, harness the power of nature, upgradable weapons, and stolen Fae magic to fight against hordes of scary fairies. Now, we have it on clear, and I have it on tape, that this is one of Spencer's favorite use of his system. So I want to go back, I think, to the beginning, which is this born of you seeing Spencer's engine, or was this in the works and then you found the engine? Was it chicken or egg? Okay.
So this is weird. We had this. So most of our games start off as a conversation, either over coffee or over like dishes. And I remember we were reading. Was it Hellboy? I think it was Hellboy. The nice. 2D20 Hellboy that Red Scar Gaming put out. And, we were discussing mechanics, and we were discussing, how it all fit together and how what we liked and what we weren't sure about. And Navi turns to me and she's like, so if you had to build something on that engine, like if you were going to do something with that system, what would you do? And I don't know, like there was just like a flash of lightning outside. And, I thought about all the fairy stories that I grew up with, my grandmother told me. And there's just something I'm like, I don't know, like maybe we could do like post-apocalyptic, like versus the Fae, because, like the natural world reasserting itself and like humans aren't welcome here anymore. She's like, that sounds pretty cool. Like, should we write that? I'm like, yeah. I mean, we can probably throw some words at it and everything. So I sat down and I started writing down some evocative names for wardens and things. I started writing down, the first one was like the Starless Night and like the Ashen Bastion and all these like mythic sounding names. And then it got to the point where I was like, because the 2D20 system, at least in Hellboy's case, still has kind of the trappings of a little bit of like 5e. So it's got like spell lists right. and ability lists and things like that. And so I had to start doing that discrete kind of building that I had only just escaped it, writing Forge in the Dark stuff. I'm like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I have it in me to write a spell list. And so we shelved it. It was really cool. It had a bunch of really cool fiction that was wrapped around the stuff that I couldn't bring myself to write. I think you were the one who found Lumen, weren't you?
Because it was a jam. I was super into jams. So the first, it wasn't the first one we released, but the first small format like zine style game that we now do regularly that we worked on was Spirited Cafe. It didn't come out first because I was hemming and hawing about whether or not it was worthy of being called a game. But we had done it because I was curious to see how much we could get. I was fascinated by zines. That's really what it is. I was fascinated by the format. I wanted to see how much we could smash something down. And anyways, at that time, I was looking for these small format games and things that people were doing in that arena. And I was so into jams. Anytime a jam came up. So Spencer actually hosted the Lumen Jam. And I believe that's when I was like, there's a jam going on. And then we kind of matched it up. We just dug through like our collection of various ideas that got shelved, and that got ported over because it seemed like a perfect fit at the time. So our first release of Hedge was very much a straightforward Lumen game. It was a very just combat forward game. And then with expansions, we added on the role-playing elements and the settlement building elements that you get later on. But the game works beautifully just as it is. And then if you want the extras, take the extras.
Yeah, the moment she brought Lumen. She's like, "There's this jam," and what is a jam? I don't what of jams, like blackberry or
it's good with toast.
Yeah, exactly. But
that's a jelly.
Okay, fair. But we were looking through the Lumen system together, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I see a little bit of Forge in the Dark in here, and I see a little bit of like a meta currency economy, and okay, I think I can groove on this. And then I read through like the list of inspirations, which are very video game and like power fantasy, and I'm like, oh man, no, this is great because now I don't have to worry about spell slots. Now it's just a whole bunch of cool buttons that you get to push to solve problems. At that point, like all these mythic characters that your poor post-apocalyptic wastelanders who have been chosen by the immortal force of nature that keeps the scary fairies out, that is failing, like their do cool stuff buttons just started like flowing. I want to say we got like the bones for Hedge down in about 36 hours.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And well, I mean, everything in the Lumen SRD, like we read through it and used pretty much the whole buffalo. And it was only when we started expanding on it that like finding ways to interlock other systems into Lumen was challenging, but like really rewarding, like because everything was so lightweight and wieldable,
So you mentioned that like this was the first Hedge, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the printed copies that you sent me and that people are going to be getting in their hands soon, though, that's the baked version. And I guess first the obvious question is what changed, right? So as you guys went through from the first time, ink hit, not ink, but a PDF got made. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Versus now, like were there some major changes? Was it also like small changes? What would I not recognize if I saw the first version?
So a lot of what we've done since then has been iterating on, because the core premise is still the same. The core loop, the idea that all is not well in your world and the fairies are making inroads and the Hedge charges you to go and make them right, mostly by fighting a lot of scary fairies. We did a lot more world building, and we've got a lot more coming because it's not entirely baked yet. It's still very much in development, and eventually there will be an omnibus. But I think right now we've got 6 zines plotted. We've got 3 of them, 7 zines plotted, wow. And we've got 3 of them ready to go right now. So right now we have Hedge, which is the core experience, the core loop. We've got Hearth, which is the expansion that brings like base building and factions. And then we've got Horde, which is a new warden, 2 new courts of the Fae, and animal companions.
That's cool. So everybody that was in this class, your game was perfect for what I was trying to accomplish, right? So the whole idea behind this class is that people stop saying, I don't have time to learn a new game, which is a bunch of baloney. Yes, you do. And everybody in the class was coming from 5e, which I couldn't have asked for something better than that. And what was exciting was watching them start to wrap their head around it. So the first thing that came up is where are the weapons? Right. So they come from a world where you got a sword, do I got a sword? Do I get a crossbow and things like that? So can we talk about how weapons are handled? So if I create a character in Hedge and I am going to arm my character, how does that work?
So weapons in Hedge, like a lot of things in Hedge, are built from tags. So whatever weapon you can imagine, like you can build it in Hedge. The idea that, like, if you wanted to take something like my favorite weapon in any kind of game like this is always a spear. I'm a sucker for a classic. Give me a blade on a stick. Keep the guy over there. So what I would do is I would take your base weapon does 1 harm and works at close. So I'm going to layer on near, which means that I can hit somebody from a little bit further away. I'm going to take like piercing because I want it to be able to defeat armor. And I could even give it like thrown if I wanted to turn it into kind of like a javelin, right? And as you level, you can improve your character, or you can improve your weapon. And so, like, you can start layering on elemental effects, and you can start, making it, all the more lethal to match your new lethal capabilities. So that was a neat thing to experiment with. And another thing that I think I might have cribbed from Spencer, because in his Arsenal update for Lumen, he had weapons that were just a bundle of tags, and I'm like, that's really neat. I wonder what kind of tags we would need for our world.
And it's so beautiful for a power fantasy, because you can, whatever weapon that you love, you can have it and it will be functional, and you won't be punished for choosing the wrong one. There was some discourse about that on Twitter today, about how there's wrong items intentionally put into some games so that you feel like you have game mastery. And that's a crappy feeling. I don't want game mastery. I want my whip to be badass. Yeah. So
right. we got to play in a game of Hedge, which was a real treat, by the way.
I bet.
Our friend on Twitter, Chris, ran us a game, and I was playing the Ashen Bastion, and I was leaning into, I am huge and indomitable, and I'm going to be the party tank, right? So my weapon was an enormous shield called the Millstone, and so I took defending, I took forceful, and I took 1 extra harm, right? So I could push. I could
bludgeon.
Yeah, exactly. I could push, I could bludgeon, and I could soak damage, and that was cool. Navi, you were playing the Briarbound Torch. Mm-hmm. No, you were playing the Thousandfold Roar.
Oh, you're right. No, I was playing.
Plays with Shifter, of course.
Of course, I did. So we tacked that one on just for me. That was one of the expansion classes. Right. I'm like, hold on, I need something a little bit more, shamanistic. It's my favorite. That's my shtick. That's my power fantasy personally. So I had that's what I was saying. I want my whip to be badass. I don't want this little 1d4. Get out of here with the 1d4 whip. So
you had pulling, and you had
pulling, reach,
far, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You could reach out and touch somebody with that thing. It's terrifying. just yanking folks around.
So for those of you listening, it's really neat to stop for a second and deconstruct. And it was funny because when I read this, because I'm familiar with tags, it didn't strike me, but watching other people start to grok it is when I realized what was happening. And, when you think about weapons in a lot of traditional games, they have attributes, right? So in reality, there is no weapon. It's really just the attributes that you care about, the damage die, the range on the weapon and stuff like that. And to watch myself included go, I think that what had happened is one of the students said, well, is it a sword or is it like a spear? And I said, I don't know.
You tell me. What fits this, right?
Slap some range on it. Now it has a chain. You're good.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't, and which is really cool, which then leans into that whole concept of the power fantasy. If I want a big anime crazy ass sword that weighs 3 times what I do, great. Let's go pick some tags and let's build that weapon, right? Or if I want a small dagger that's deadlier than any weapon ever to come through Hedge, I can have that little dagger to do it, not the 1d4 whip.
That's right. Well, I mean, you're already you're already piloting a suit of biomechanical power armor at this point, right? Like the Hedge has empowered you to be a superhero. So like, why would you take something that wasn't awesome?
So we started. Part of the lesson was how to handle combat. And first I say let's create characters, because I think that's very informative, right? As we learn through how we build the characters, we understand what the decisions the players are going to make, which can inform using a GM, and so on and so forth, right? Then 2, what's the resolution mechanic, which in Hedge takes all of 3 minutes to explain. But one thing that they stopped on, because it was so different, is the monsters.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so, explaining to them the whole drop system, right? That things are going to drop. And they said, and we did the combat, and I said, okay, you defeat the monster, and they dropped, an antlers of something, right? And they go, well, what does it do? So can we explain to people how that works, and how when I pick up these drops from these monsters, I gain powers? But what does that really mean mechanically in the game? Because we had a lot of people flipping through books, flipping through pages.
Well, go ahead. No,
this is fun. This is a narrative aspect. This is a conversation to be had at the table, and it leans into like personal table culture and how big of the power fantasy, like how big can we go in this shared fantasy that we have. So when you pick up those, antlers, you as the player have to kind of stop and think, well, what do I think this does? What is a cool thing that could happen? And it's if you're feeling like you can't really create an interesting ability on the fly, it's not really cheating to just look and see what abilities the monster that dropped it had, and go, oh, you know what, it gives me this exact ability.
Yeah. And they're grafts too. They're not like magic items. They alter you, right? So if you lay hands on, I'm trying to remember what that one is. I'm fairly certain it's like the rack of curling horns, or the antlers of solid honey and fire, or whatever. Like your warden is changing, and as they change, like they're getting some of the power of the fey creature that they've defeated, and like you need, like the player is encouraged to at this point like say how your form shifts, and then like what new ability do we think that this grants us, right? Because you can use it once. It's not your power, it's stolen, right?
Right.
You use it once, and then like you need to rest a while, otherwise your humanity is impacted. But the idea is that like you picked up this thing that is now I'm going to solve the problem button. And then it's a conversation between the GM and the player at that point.
Yeah, and what was neat for them to really realize, and this is why it ended up being a great game for this class, is made them realize things that we don't necessarily have to define in a traditional way, and start breaking from that and really reverse engineering what we're doing at the table, which, Forged in the Dark did a great job of that for us. But I think that, Hedge does a great job for this class. It made them stop and think and go, wait, just because it's always done this way doesn't mean it has to be done this way. And if we do it this way, we're really not doing it that different. We're just handling it different, which I think was very, very cool. You guys mentioned that you got both to play in a game run by Chris. And I want to know, what did you see happen that in all the times you've run Hedge, having somebody else on that side of the screen running your game and your players, what did Chris do that you had either not seen, not thought of, or when he had your violin, what song did he play?
Man, it was a good tune. I'm having trouble categorizing it, but okay. So when I run Hedge, I'm very much in. This goes for just about any game that I'm running. I ask more questions than I give answers. I'm very like player directed. Like, what do we think about this, or how do we see this going? Because like I frame everything like it's a scene from a movie, right? So I'm like, okay, so this is what we're seeing on camera. Like, what do we get from your character here? What are you interacting with in the background? Like, what are we seeing as like the credits are rolling here, or whatever? Chris is a really good GM. Like he establishes truths and then like asks you what that means, right?
Nice.
And then the big thing that I really enjoyed was seeing him wield the combat system.
How so?
So when I am running the combat system, I don't expect like a particular roll, a particular stat to be rolled to do something. I ask like, how are you trying to accomplish what you're trying to do? Is it might? Is it sleight? Or is it bright? Right? Those are the 3 stats, by the way. Everything rhymes. I'm very sorry. The way that Chris did it, like he laid out options, right? So like he laid out like, so in this moment, like I think that you could probably do this, and that would be like something like this, or you could do something like this, and that would be this other stat, right? It was very much like. How did that
feel to have that handled so differently?
So I don't get to play games. Like that's kind of like the stone that I carry, right? I think that really I'm always. Did you ever play music? Were you ever in like a band or anything like that? Okay. So did anybody who played like your same instrument just like ever have like a flourish and you're like, man, how do you do that?
Well, it's anger that I felt, but
okay,
yeah.
Did you happen to play trumpet? Okay.
Guitar.
Right.
Really bad.
Fair.
Really bad guitar player.
So every trumpeter and about half the guitarists I've ever met are the exact same way. Yeah, there's a little bit of like, man, that's so damn clever. I should know how to do that. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's but it's more like that thing where you're watching somebody who has like their personal like lick, their personal style, and you're watching them just pull it off effortlessly, and you're trying to dissect it, and it's really hard because they execute so effortlessly, so flawlessly that you can't really see the pieces in motion.
Right.
And that was Chris at that game.
So Navi, obviously you have played a lot of games where Shawn was the GM, but that's not the only games that you have been a player in, right? You've had lots of different GMs and a lot of different systems. And again, this is not saying better or worse or anything, but I would be interested to know that when you're playing in someone else's game, right, and it's not Shawn's game, what does Shawn do that you end up missing? So when you're playing in somebody else, they might be a great GM, right? They might be a better GM than Shawn.
Probably.
But is there something about the way Shawn runs games that you miss when you don't have that with another GM?
Yeah, I think that's a hard question to answer because I can legitimately say that I married him for his storytelling abilities.
Cool.
Okay.
He tends to. I think that he kind of has a derogatory for it. He calls it like purple prose, but he tends to wax poetic, and he explains things in a way that's kind of eloquent and like it's very storybook when he talks about things, and his uncanny ability to always have something to say, which upsets me, like makes me fearful of ever trying to GM because there's never any like real pause. There's no stop to think. He just opens his mouth and like amazing comes out, and frankly it pisses me off. So
as it should.
Let me interject because there are definitely pauses, and it's always hang on. There's a word for this
in English.
So how does that translate to the table then? So when you're playing in one of his games, how do we see that happen at the table? That ability of his that you may not see at other tables.
It's just that ability to create a scene, an ambiance, really get you submersed in what's happening, create an NPC that you care about. That has like that has like immediate depth. Like you immediately relate to them like they're an actual character rather than like a cardboard cutout of a character that I need for this scene. And again, just that. Always keeping things flowing and not letting the table kind of stagnate, because even amongst really good GMs, I find there's a lot of awkward silent moments where everybody's looking around going, okay, who's gonna, and that just doesn't happen because he like somehow psychically knows how to just step in and fill that silence before it happens.
It's a pointed question, because if we're losing forward momentum, then like the way that I get that to move again, like I have to poke the situation with a stick is what it really is. And Craig, I've seen you do
very
that.
much so. So I asked you that question, Navi, and you said, "Oh, that's a hard question." And I'm sitting here going, "No, that's the softball. Here comes the fast."
Oh no, okay. I'm ready.
So, and again, not naming names, but is there something that you have seen a GM do that you just didn't experience in your time playing games run by Shawn that was not Shawn, but you went, "Ooh, like." That's kind of cool. Like, what is something you have seen a GM do that really struck you going, you know what? Normally in my games, especially when Shawn's running, I don't see this, but I like this. Is there something you've seen happen?
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is just a brutally strict adherence to the rules. So because he'll if something is going to derail a scene or mess with something, he'll fudge things, move it around a little bit and keep it going. The story is great, but for instance, I can't remember the spell. We're talking 3.5 D&D, but I had a GM who let me get away with the most ridiculous thing. We were fighting the big boss vampire in a cave, and it's the big moment, like the climax. And the first thing I do is use whatever ridiculous spell it is that druids get to like transmute or mute or move stone or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but based on my level and how the math actually worked out, I was able to basically take the cave and drop it on him, and that was the end of the fight. You never let that fly. That vampire would have turned to mist, come out the other side, slap me in the face.
That vampire's smart.
But in that case, I got to be a big damn hero and smash a vampire with a rock, which was kind of cool because the rules said I could do that.
Yep. And the math was there.
The math was there.
That's cool. So the boomerang to you then, Shawn. What is something that Navi does at the table that you just love? And you know, if she's not at the table it's missing.
Navi is the kind of player who makes space.
Interesting.
So like there's an unsung portion of the role-playing game community that is the people who are fantastic supporting roles. Like they take their moments in the spotlight. They execute very well. They make moments.
Drop rocks on vampires.
Sure, yeah, exactly. But the thing that they bring is an unrelenting excitement that everybody here is together and having a good time. So when they are in the midst of a moment, they make space for somebody else. They bring people in, right? These are the kind of people that like. Any improvisational troupe, like any kind of improv group, would be just so over the moon to have in their stable, because the energy that they are supplying buoys everybody around them.
And Navi, is that a conscious effort on your part, or is it just kind of happen because you are who you are and you play the way you play, or is it both?
It's both. I mean, at some point, I think I realized that the story that we tell together is much better than the story that I could tell by myself. And I do plenty of writing. I could go sit in the corner and write a story by myself. Right. I think that it's actually a lot more enjoyable for me as my play style to support someone else doing something really cool. So, you know, I'm the person who like blows all of my stress on assists. I'm going to set up every action for you. Oh, you're doing a really cool thing. I got an idea. This is how I'm going to support you. I like seeing other people do really cool stuff. And if I can support them in doing really cool stuff, I think that's probably the most fun that I can have. I don't know. It's like, I don't know, it's my kink. I want to see you do something cool.
Do a little dance. I'll support it.
All right. So that was the softball.
Here we go.
So here comes the hardball, right? So what have you seen other players do that Navi doesn't that you just love?
Oh, man.
And it's not a criticism, right? It's just different ways to play the game.
So.
And then tell me her name. No, I'm kidding. That was completely inappropriate. I'm sorry.
I'm waiting for this to end up being like, the player that doesn't immediately burn down everything around.
That's fair. Like that's fair. Like,
how so?
So Navi's got she's got a streak about her that is, I don't know if you picked this up, like following her on Twitter or hearing her talk for like a minute. She's anti-authoritarian. Like anybody who tells her what to do or how to do it or anything like that immediately draws like a visceral reaction, right? So like when we were playing trad games together, like putting a quest in front of her, like anything that had like, but you must, like she's like, oh yeah, bet. Like, let me show you how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Take the damn hook.
Please, I've prepped a dungeon. It's got an ecology. There's monsters and treasure down there, I promise. And she's like, no, this guy is clearly some kind of tool.
Oh God, that's funny.
Let's spend my moment in the spotlight here telling him exactly what I think of him. I want to get us to the fun part of the game, Navi. Can we please? No, but there are some people who are. I hate to say that they're easy to direct. They're an easy cat to herd because they bite. They have immediate buy-in, right? So I have to. For Navi and players like Navi, there's a soft touch that is necessary. Like there's a little bit of like. I have to tie this into something natural. I have to make it seem like her idea.
Or get somebody else excited about it.
Excited about it so that she can support them in being excited about that because she will bite. She will bite.
Well, I would imagine too, you have to, because I've run into that, right? And you have to make them care.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is kind of what, like, it's their idea, right? Like you can't just say, I need you to go kill the goblins. But if you can make, the goblins, are stealing children or, something along those lines that the character can tie to. So that's interesting.
Somebody sympathetic has to bring that.
Right.
And nobody, I can't pull the stock, bastard chief watchman or whatever, to come in and say, hey, this is your duty or whatever. Nerds to my duty. I had other things to do.
So I should have predicted that this first segment would not be 20 minutes. It would actually end up being an hour, which doesn't surprise me at all, but it makes me happy. No, that this is my fault, not your fault. I took us down a whole GM player track that we didn't expect, but I absolutely loved. So guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about really the reason why I was able to hoodwink these two into coming back on the show. We're going to talk about the Kickstarter that's live as you're listening right now. We're going to talk about Dead Belt. We'll be right back. This is the part of many podcasts where someone comes on, interrupts the show, and explains that you should consider paying for the content that you're listening to right now for free. That pitchman explains by giving $1 or more a month, you not only support the show, but you allow the show to grow and improve. Here on the third floor, we refuse to interrupt your episode of Tabletop Talk with such time-wasting pleas. We pledge never to run a spot asking you to go to patreon.com and give $1 or more a month because supporting content creators keeps the content coming. Even if there is a link in the show's description, and there is. We don't ask you to click it and become a patron. We don't waste time rambling about the benefits like early access to episodes, getting episodes without ad breaks like this, or even getting a chance to play in one of Craig's RPG sessions. Anyway, enjoy this episode knowing Tabletop Talk, despite being supported by its patrons, won't engage in such blatant appeals for support. Dead Belt is a unique strategy tabletop RPG made for 1 or 2 players. It blends role-playing decision-making with procedural generation, bad news, and a heaping dose of late-stage capitalism in space. Join the skillful and desperate scavengers picking over the remains of junked starships in hopes of a juicy payday. Now, I don't know what else I can tell you other than that sounds really cool, but that's what the game is. You know me. We got to go back. I guess my first question is, again, a little chicken and the egg. Was it I really like, I want to do more of the, well, first of all, what was first? The idea for Skyworthy, the idea for this? For those of you listening, Skyworthy, another amazing journaling solo RPG that they've made. You got to go check it out. It's absolutely gorgeous. But what was first?
Skyworthy, right?
I want to say Skyworthy was first.
I think it was Skyworthy because no, yeah, you're right. No, it is Skyworthy. Skyworthy was first.
And did that give you a bug to say I've got more to do with this type of a a solo RPG? Or
so we like I always say, like we crawl over everybody's SRDs. That's kind of our stock in trade. We like to see what's new and what's cool and what people are doing. I had never played a solo RPG until I backed Bucket of Bolts by Mousehole Press, and man, like Bucket of Bolts, it looked so elegant and contained, but it was just this, story generation engine that made me care about these ships and this place and this time and these people that never were, and I'm a big old softy at heart, right? Like I was a military aviator for 10 years and I flew on birds that were, from the Vietnam War era. Like they had graffiti and they had, seat indentations and they had
lived in.
Yeah, exactly. And they smelled like, they had been in service. They were old war horses, I cry like I got a skin knee anytime I see something that's been doing the job without complaint, that has seen lives come and go. And I'm like, you know what? I think I got a game in me. There was a jam. There was a jam, and I'm like, you know what? We were, and we still are. We're still kicking around a sky ships and swashbuckling Forged in the Dark game that is has been in development for a while now. But and I'm like, Navi, can we make a prequel game? And she looked at me. She's like, "What is wrong with you?"
This is the way the conversation always goes in his head. He insists that every time he says something to me, I ask him what's wrong with him, and I'm not sure if it's true. It could be.
It is. It's true. No. So she didn't in so many words say what is wrong with you. She just gave me this look like, convince me, right? It's a podcast, so nobody else could see the look, but it's kind of one eyebrow up and kind of from the side eye, convince me, right? I'm like, okay.
Much like she does when she wants to buy a printer.
There it is. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like
you do it to each other.
Right. Exactly. Because that's how a partnership works.
Exactly.
So I sat down and I started writing on it, and it was cheaper than therapy is what it really came down to.
Interesting.
It is the most raw-hearted prose, the most raw-hearted fiction I think I've ever committed to paper. Like I can't play the game because I well up every time. And
really,
oh yeah.
Oh, so what is it? What happens in the game, or what prompts you to get emotional?
So Skyworthy is a game where you're playing the role of the skyship. You're not playing the captain. You're not playing the crew. They'll come and go. And it's a game in which you meet people who become very important to you. And then they grow old and die. They retire. They the vicissitudes of time affect them in a way that it'll never affect you. But you'll carry these marks, these things that have changed you, like your fundamental nature, through a world that's changing while you stay the same, except for what these people do. So you'll remember, like I wrote songs, and I wrote, heartfelt reunions and, tragedies that befell captain and crew. And I thought about all the people that I flew with that never flew home.
Yeah.
And so it's raw. And I think it makes its way to the people who play the game as well.
It does. I think what struck me the most was, and it took me a little while to understand this. And, you know, I could be completely off, but, you know, once you hand me the game, it's what I want it to be. I found it to be a very interesting take on immortality. Mm-hmm. And a really interesting, like, you know, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, of course, does an amazing job of this as well. And it was a stealth theme in the game that I had not really recognized until I spent a little time with it. So you're creating this wonderful little game. It's creating an emotional response for you. It is bringing back things that you know, that you cared about and things that meant stuff to you. Where's Dead Belt in all of this? Is it tied to it? Is it a child of it? Is it a God, I got to take a break? What happens?
So after Skyworthy, like I was happy. I was very happy that I you know, finished this thing. People enjoyed this thing. I was getting a lot of really great feedback. I was reading a lot of playthroughs and notes that people were leaving me about their ships and everything. And I mostly didn't cry over most of them. There are some of them that like I read through them, and at the end of it, I'm like, I think we actually hit something. But I took a week.
That's so cool.
I just took a week, and I sat down and I played video games. And I'm like, I can't anymore. Like I had at this point, we're still running our little family farm in Texas, and I'm going to the farmer's market, and I'm selling and everything, and I'm putting on the brave face, and people are asking how I'm doing, and I'm lying. But I come home and I started playing this video game that is just very zen, very tranquil, called Hard Space Shipbreaker, where you are in a deconstruction yard, tearing down old starships and sorting them into their like recycling bins. But the thing about it is that it cost $1 billion to get you to space, and you're slowly paying down your debt to the megacorp that got you out there. And there's, you know, a very strong union vibe through the game. There's a lot of like, we're all in this together, like all you and the other breakers are what they're called out in the yard. And you're getting little vignettes from their life, and they're talking about back home, and it's kind of set to a twangy kind of blues guitar. And it's very kind of, you know, the, you know, frontier lifestyle out there in space. Right. At the same time, I'm still reading games because I've got a problem. And I found Peach Garden Games' Carta system. And I sat down with Navi, and I'm like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. Like it's like a hex crawl, but all the hexes are cards, and all the cards have like prompts, and they mean something. And Navi did what she did, and she's like, so if you were to build something on that system, what would you do? And I said, well, follow me through on this, because like I've still got the game up in the background. I'm like, What if we were taking apart old starships for like scrap and trying to pay down our debts in space? And she's like, we need to find you a new game. Give me 48 hours. Give me 48 hours, and I'm sure we'll have something. And what I brought back was basically another kind of sad, elegiac, because that was the headspace I was in, right? And she's like, no, this needs some zazz. Like we need to, like, it can't just be you alone in your thoughts and everything. And so she's like, get it to where we can play test it, and we'll play test it together.
So pause for just a second here, because I've got a question. And this is for you, Navi. This just gut spill that Shawn's doing onto these games, where he's just dumping all of this emotion and like some like raw shit on the page. Is that something that you do as well, or is that kind of, you let him do it and then you make him feel better afterwards? Like we're now going into the second game where, you know, he obviously is, you know, really expressing some deep shit through his design. Do you have your own form of that in your design, or is it different for you?
This is I don't know. This is kind of, I think, a reversal of what people would expect. But I think that I'm actually the one who is not as emotionally open, emotionally available, especially like on paper or to
the
be
public.
vulnerable
To the public, yeah.
to the public. So I was fine with I helped with some of the prompts, and of course I clean things up, and I do a lot of writing, so I'm okay with portraying those emotions, but like I don't have the deep connection. I don't put my stuff on paper that way because I don't know. I feel like maybe the world would explode. I'm not sure. I think that when what comes through that's Navi clearly had something to do with this is when something is deeply cynical. If it's deeply cynical or angry, you're like, oh, Navi was here. I see.
I'm a squishy romantic at heart. Like I wear that with pride, despite how bitter and cynical I can occasionally come off. Like I'm definitely the squishier one here.
But that's got to be a neat balance when you guys are kind of Lennon McCartney, right? Where you know Lennon McCartney always wrote the songs together, but something was more Lennon, sometimes it was more McCartney. So it's interesting for you to be able to bring some of the squishy stuff to her hard edges, and then for her to like sharpen up a few things, so it's not a bunch of just a wet sponge, right?
No. She's the anvil on which like the final product is forged. Is what it really is. Like I'm there, heating the metal. That's what it is, and she's
great
there,
analogy.
Grinding it into something useful is what it really is. Because I come to her, we have like the one joke, but I bring her a sonnet with dice notation, and she turns it into a game.
Right. Who, using that same analogy of the forge, who is better at stopping and dipping it into the water and letting it harden? Who's better at?
Yep, she is absolutely the quench. I will happily take hammer and tongs and help form it, but mostly like I'll supply raw ingredients and I will supply heat. Word after word after word, I will sit down and I will punch the words until there are enough of them for her to take the file and the rasp and turn it into something useful.
It's actually a really great relationship because I'll get like all of his notes and I'll be filling in things based off of his notes, and we have a synergy. So like I'll look at it and I'll understand what he meant, or maybe I'll see something I think could be improved on and I'll make those changes. But at the end of the day, when I get to certain points where I'm just like, there's a section here that I need written, I don't really want to be the one to write it. I can look at him and just tell him this is what I need written for this page, please.
She does a really cool thing because it's like, I understand what you're doing. I understand what you're doing here. I understand what we're going for. I understand like the target we're trying to hit. What's missing is where we describe how to hit that target, right? Because I will, in the midst of my profound, like the agony of creation or whatever, I will completely forget that there is a important step that I am assuming that everybody else will just naturally come to, right? And she finds it and she's like, no, you have to remember to write that part for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge asset for her to be able to, even though you guys have such a history and such a shared language, for Navi, for you to be able to still read it like a reader, right? As somebody who's not married to the person writing those words. I mean, that's a huge of gift. So now we have painted this unbelievable harmonious picture of the two of you, Simon and Garfunkeling every game, and it's comes out perfect and whatnot. But we know that's not the case.
It's a road, yeah.
Yeah. So when the two of you lock horns, what does it tend to be about? Where do you guys, tend to have challenges working together to get to the other side?
I know this one. It's juicy too. Oh, I get on them all the time. So we spitball ideas back and forth. We generate a list of ideas that we kind of have rotating that we'll go through, and sometimes they'll develop over time and we'll put in notes and whatnot. And sometimes there'll be a project that I'm really excited about, but I don't want to take lead on because I think that he has a little bit of a vision already of how it's going to come together. So I have my own games that I take the lead on, and then I ask him to come in later. But for some things, I really want him to take the lead. And I'll be really passionate about an idea and he's not focusing on it. And I'll be like, if you don't start working on this, I'm going to do it myself. And I'm not going to listen to your complete, like, I'm not going to listen to any, you know, whatever about it not being the way you envisioned it.
That's what it is. Like, when there's something that she's passionate about, she knows to give me an ultimatum. Because otherwise, like, whatever.
This is your chance to get your vision on the paper, or I'm doing it my way.
Whatever vision I have in my head, because it's always there. Like, the moment that we are, like, we have pitch meetings over coffee is what it really is. Like, I'm making coffee in the morning and we're talking about like what our day looks like. And oftentimes, like, anytime you ask, like, when did this happen? It's always doing dishes or you know, for coffee. And so, you know, when she has an idea, when she pitches something, and I'm like, oh man, this is what we can do with that. And she's like, oh, that sounds really good. And I'm putting all the gears together. I'm staring into the middle distance like it owes me something.
And I need it on the paper.
Exactly. And she's like, okay, this is good. This face that you have here tells me that you're working stuff out, but you know, your computer's over there. Which means, you know, you need to sit down and actually punch those words.
So you were given, speaking of ultimatums, you were told, okay, you love this prompt hex concept. You've been playing this video game. You say, give me 36 hours, give me 48 hours. Mm-hmm. What comes back? What comes to paper first?
No, he had a lot of prompts nailed down already, because he led with the prompts. That was the juice of the story, and the prompts were good and they made sense. And he had a couple basic stats that you could use to navigate. And it was strong. The prompts were really, really good. They still are, but like they hooked me. So suddenly I was sold, because I don't actually like solo games. That's my dirty secret. I don't like solo games. So I'm sitting down with this, and you know, thinking, oh, here we go, another solo game, yay! And then it's really, really quite amazing. I actually want to play, so I'm like, you know, I'm going to continue to play until I win this game.
Now
Hold
go
on.
finish it.
And so at that point, I mean, this happens quite frequently, is like I play through it and I'm like, okay, well, here's all the stuff that I really wish was there as a player. And then we start reworking everything so that we fold those elements in.
Yep.
What were the big ones, though, that first time, Navi? What were the big ones you came back and said, okay, there is something here, but you got a big hole here, and this is what this is what I need you to fix first?
I think it was the upgrades. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really a big upgrade system. So, you know, you died a lot without any ability to mitigate it. And what's great about it now is it's also like a little bit like a roguelike. You survive the boat, you get to buy some stuff that helps you survive the next one better. And initially, it was those kinds of things were really kind of missing. So you really were playing purely on luck. Like, it was still fun and enjoyable, but you never got sufficiently better to take on bigger and better prizes, because you eventually just died by bad luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was supposed to be. Well, I mean, when I first wrote it, it was not a game that I foresaw anybody actually winning. Like, I never thought it was one of those things.
I need to win. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah. So she's like, okay.
You don't play 10 candles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a tragic horror game as opposed to like, yeah. So, right. I feel you. There's a perverse urge, right, to, you know, here is, because obviously, like, late stage capitalism, it's got its problems.
Yeah.
And I wanted to portray them, you know, honestly and earnestly. Like, the corps and the banks are never going to let you out of this weird, like, quasi-indentured servitude that you're in. And I wanted that to be, like, kind of, you know, part and parcel to the experience. And Navi's like, no, this game's way too fun to be moralizing. Is what it really is.
Yeah.
Like the late stage capitalism and everything, like the biting indictment of consumer culture and waste and everything, that can stay. But what if I'm just getting better at this? And I'm like, okay. So we need we need to
fight that
system.
And also the Void Rat was mine. Yep. I'm like, and also I need a character that can run through the vents like Ripley's kid. I need that. So
I need to be Newt from Aliens.
I need to be Newt.
So when she told you that, though, so that's you know, that's brushing in the different direction than you were headed. Did you resist it at first, or she says that to you and you're like, oh God, that's great, let's go with it? Or
so I had to sit down and have a think, and at that point I was sitting down and having a think with Hard Space Shipbreaker, So I'm sitting down and I'm sorting my recyclables. I'm pulling out, reactors, and I'm, hucking the bench seating, down through the bottom of the hull and everything through the hole that I'd cut in, and I explosively decompress and I fly into the furnace or whatever. And I'm like, man, as I'm seeing my debt tick up as they, boot up a new clone of me after I incinerate myself, I'm like, man, I had made so much progress toward paying down my debt. And then I did this stupid, oh, wait, the reason I'm playing this stupid game is because I'm incrementally paying down that debt. And every time I get enough cash, I buy a new piece of gear that's making it a little bit. She's so damn right. Okay. And so I stand up and I'm like, all right. All right. No, I got you. All right. We're going to sit down together and we're going to, what feels good. And then we start working on the upgrade system. And she was totally right.
So what's the next big chunk, right? So that was the first big kind of leap, right, to get closer to what we have now. Was there any other big ones, Navi, that you can think of, or Shawn, that you can think of, that was kind of another, and not just little things, right? Like where you guys took a huge step towards what it became.
No, I think it really came together quickly once we took it to the table and started playing it, because this is something that's absolutely beautiful about solo games, because as much as I do bag on solo games because of my personal preferences, with a solo game you can playtest and iterate in a closed loop, and really quickly you can get through a lot of stuff. So I can play through really fast and find all the holes and then plug them and then play through again and see if it feels right. So it snapped together super fast, and as soon as we had it, as soon as we got it to where it felt good to play at the table ourselves, we pushed it straight out to Ashcan, which is something that we do all the time. I think people know us for this. We push games out really early, and sometimes they have holes in them, and people inform us of things that they notice, and that helps us improve the game over time. And I want to say that we released a couple updates on Dead Belt long before the Kickstarter. We were updating Dead Belt regularly. I had released an additional cheat sheet and a sheet of errata, like things that straight up didn't have the space or time to force it into the layout, but it's changes. So from us finishing it to uploading it, there were more iterations, but a lot of it came directly from player feedback, which has always been super important to us. We really do rely on that, which is why our Ashcans, we're honest about it. We let people know the games aren't finished. They're marked in development. We price them, in a friendly way, and that's kind of our deal. Yeah.
The big thing that we noticed was that we got a lot of people who had really were not familiar with there are moves, right? There's the shipbreaker move, there's the bank move, there's the airlock move, and we got some confused board gamers.
Interesting.
They were I didn't realize that apparently is very much a TTRPG lingo. That's not familiar to other people. So they kept saying move, and they're like, I don't know what you want from me.
Okay. Right. Is that like the funky chicken? Like, what do I do here?
Yeah.
I mean, it's explained and everything, but they're like, okay, so to make this friendlier to board gamers, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to explain what this means in the mechanics first, and then I can hang fiction on it afterward. I think the edit for clarity that we got back from just a number of board gamers, probably 15, 20 board gamers who were just like, hey, this looks pretty cool. And I've been playing like a board game and I've almost won a couple times. I'm like, that's really cool. What did you have trouble with? And so trying to make sure that it bridged that gap was important. So that was the last one.
If you consume a lot of board games like I do, that's something you get very good at, though, is identifying and understanding rules. And it's, I think that board games are ahead of RPGs in this respect. Mm-hmm. Not all board games have good rules, but on average, it's cleaner, right, in board games, and then they have an advantage in some respect. So that's incredibly valuable for you, though, to have created an RPG that was obviously attracting board gamers. Why was that the case? What was it about Dead Belt that was had that smell that board gamers love?
Probably the resource management, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. doesn't demand that you role play. You are kind of role playing in that you step into a character, but you can just play the game as written, read the prompts, and have a really great time. And you don't have to actually engage with it from a perspective of trying to play a character. It does make it more fun to, this is how my character would behave, even though it's against my best interest or whatever.
That kills me so often, though.
he always plays a cowboy and he always dies.
Yeah.
No, I've lost my train of thought because I'm thinking of you dying in space every time.
Every time. I always drift off into the great unknown. That's okay. So the idea, it's almost got a vaguely like Euro style board game feel to it, in that like every time you're making a move, you're what's the word? There's a word for this in English. Hang on. You're trying to optimize your turns, right? You're trying to optimize your turns. You're trying to make the most out of your resources. You're trying to minimize your risks while maximizing your output per turn, right?
Yep.
The most successful belters are the ones who do all those things. And so there was a little bit of, I think the first guy who recommended this game actually recommended it on a board game forum.
That's cool.
So yeah,
it was unexpected. Like that was the best part, is we didn't go in targeting board gamers. We didn't really think that board gamers, like that wasn't even on our radar. And then all of a sudden board gamers were like, this is really cool. And they were talking about it and sharing it. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then of course we learned things that we didn't even know that needed to be like corrected and patched to make it more reader friendly for somebody who, because it's not just for board gamers. It's if you've never played any TTRPGs at all and you happen to pick this up first, you're going to have the same confusion. And it's stuff that doesn't occur to us because we've been doing it for so long that it's just part of the lizard brain at this point.
So again, not naming names, but is there an Ashcan player that had they not picked up Dead Belt, played it, and then told you what they thought, Dead Belt would have not be as good as it is? So is there a particular person or feedback that you got back once this thing was out in the wild that really was a game changer?
It was not the kind of feedback that you think of. It wasn't somebody writing a review specifically. It was an actual play that we watched. Someone had done an actual play of the game. So we actually got to see them and how they interacted with the system and see where they misunderstood our intentions.
God, that's huge.
Yeah, and we made huge changes after we saw the first person do an actual play, because there were things where like, okay, that's not written clearly enough. Mm-hmm. And then we go back and we fix it, and yeah, so. By
the same token, every time we release an Ashcan, like we are here rabid for feedback.
And, we take it too.
And there has never been a time that the community has not like offered something. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of our games that have died in obscurity or, appear to have that, this is our itch page. These Ashcans are like a test bed for like, these are cool things that we are working on that we think are neat. Let's see if anybody else thinks that they're neat as well. And that helps us target like, okay, obviously like there doesn't seem to be like a huge outcry for this. And so it just kind of like, it's there, it's fun. It's something that is finished enough to have a good time with, but it isn't where we start like, okay, let's really drill down on this and refine and revise. But Dead Belt, the moment we released it, like it found a small community that were into it. So
I don't think I've ever thought about this, but like what you're talking about there is essentially like a one-way mirror, right? Where you had somebody who was playing, having no real awareness that, that you guys were going to be watching. The play is over, so you can't interject, you can't type into the chat, and you get to. Boy, that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It's like you had to step back. You had to let it just happen, and that had to have been incredibly informative.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely was. Like if we could do that on every playtest, if I could just observe through a small pinhole,
I wish we could do
like that would be so phenomenally helpful to figure out we read everything. Like we read everything out loud to each other. We play by the book and everything. But even so, we have our internal, like we're too close to it to ever come at it from a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So watching somebody come at it from a vacuum is so cool and sometimes infuriating, but mostly cool.
I was going to say, I can't, there has to be times where you yell at the screen. It just has to be, whether you're yelling at yourself or them.
Why was I so stupid?
All right, so I need either of you or both of you to finish this sentence for me, which is, you're going to love Dead Belt if you love...
Shitting on capitalism.
Oh, come on.
Well, no, it's...
Wait, I'm forgetting. Which one's the cynical one? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, right?
That's what it is, though. It's a big tongue-in-cheek, like, you're going to die in space trying to pay off this debt. The chances of you succeeding are very slim, but it's incredibly fun. It's really snarky. The humor in it is pretty ridiculous. A lot of the prompts say things like, if you fail your role, like unless you spend something to change your outcome, it's like, sorry, you're dead. You got it.
Sorry, you got it.
It's a really brutal game that's kind of tongue in cheek, and it's kind of poking fun at the current economic situation that we're kind of all facing. So it's also a little cathartic to kind of
to put one over on the banks, right? They extend me a predatory loan. Well, I guess I'll take that and show them. Okay, but I'm going to answer the question, I think, in the spirit that Craig meant it.
But I like that answer, by the way. That was a great answer. Partially because it just shot out of you.
Like a flock of doves.
It was a visceral response, which I love those.
So you're going to love Dead Belt if you like the Alien franchise and Weyland-Yutani, who does not care about the human cost of whatever they're doing. You're going to love Dead Belt if you like Mothership, because it is a lethal, vaguely survival horror flavored experience that you can play when you're between sessions with your Mothership game. It's a game that you'll like if you are into The Expanse, that kind of hard Scrabble on the edge. Like there's a reason we call our folks Belters, after all.
Yeah, that's what I loved. Yeah.
And then I think you'll love Dead Belt if, like me, you've sunk about 300 hours into Hard Space Shipbreaker.
And don't forget Firefly. Firefly's a huge touchstone, because the tone, who doesn't love the tone of Firefly? Like, that's the best part of the entire show.
Good space western, out on the gasping frontier. And yeah, I think there's a lot to like there.
So just random, do you guys have any podcasts you'd recommend if I wanted to get a better sense of Dead Belt? Is there anything out there?
So I am a crazy person, and decided that it would be fun, just kind of when we were sitting in our hotel room up here in Pennsylvania, after a long day of cleaning this place out, I sat down and made a half-hearted kind of joke at Twitter, and said that I kind of have a totally legitimate urge to just kind of do a Southern drawl into a microphone talking about the deeper lore of the Dead Belt. And then I went and I recorded the first episode. And that is Dead Belt True Tales of the Gasping Frontier, that you can find on any kind of podcast platform. If you like Old Gods of Appalachia or anything like that, that kind of strange folk horror, anthology horror stuff, that's what we're doing over on the channel over there.
We may or may not have been binging Old Gods on the drive back from Texas to Pennsylvania back and forth.
Yep.
That might have had something to do with it.
Had a lot to do with it.
We're talking about, guitar players that, they do something and you go, oh, you sons of bitches.
Yep.
That's Old Gods. Like, I listen to that podcast, I just get angry. I just get angry.
Just so damn talented.
This is hard, and you're not making it clear how hard this is, because it sounds really easy when you guys are so good. It's so good. So guys, we're going to take another break. When we get back from this break, I've got a couple things I want to talk to the Drakes about. I want to talk to them about games that change the way that they play and design, and then we're going to get into my favorite segment on the show, which is What Do You Love? We'll be right back. You like science fiction, right? You love playing games, maybe even role-playing games. But what if you can't get your friends together for a game night? If you love games like Mothership or Orbital Blues, check out Dead Belt, a card-based space western solo strategy RPG about skillful and desperate scavengers picking over the remains of junked starships in hopes of a juicy payday. In it, you deal with lurking dangers, push your luck, and walk away with enough cred to keep on flying. Of course, you might get eaten by lurking aliens, or run afoul of rival scavengers, or face the murderous ghosts of long-dead spacers. No one said life in the Dead Belt was going to be easy. For more information on this and all of Shawn and Navi Drake's games, swing over to acoupleofdrakes.com. The link's in the show notes. So this is a topic that I've been wanting to insert in a segment in an interview. And when I knew that Navi and Shawn were going to come on, I'm like, oh, perfect. These are the people that I can have this conversation with. So, and it's something that I've been playing around with Patrick, Shawn, because he played For the Queen with us, right?
Sure did.
So this is something that Patrick's on my ass about a ton of stuff. And Patrick gets very frustrated because I have ideas and I have thoughts, and he's like, you need to write these down, because he's a professional writer. That's what he does for a living, is he has ideas and he sells them to people. And one of the things he said, Craig, he goes, I always find it interesting when you tell me, like, because he'll have a challenge in writing, and I'll go buy this game, right? Because you're going to find the way that this game handles this will be very, very interesting. And he's like, you need to write that shit down, Craig, because like not everybody sees that stuff the way you do. So here's the idea. I am finding, and we had a little bit of this conversation when we were talking about Forged in the Dark way back when we first talked, right? And that's the example I'll use, right? Once I started playing Forged in the Dark games, it changed how I run Call of Cthulhu. It changed how I run Slayers. It changes how I run all these different games. And the thing that Forged in the Dark taught me was you can let the players approach things any way that they want, as long as you make it clear how well it can go and how bad it can go, right? Which is the idea of position and effect, which you can bring to any game without the mechanics of it, right? It was mechanized by John, but really that concept of, yeah, if you want to try to sleep with the Dragon Bard, you can, but here's your position and here's your effect, right? And so it changed how I played games. Another one just recently that did this for me is how I handle mysteries. I read Cordova's Brindlewood Bay, and it blew my mind. And now every mystery I run, whether it be, a horror mystery or anything else, is permanently changed now. So, and either of you can start. Can you think of a board game or an RPG that first we'll talk about changed how you play, and then we'll talk about changed how you design? Who wants to go first?
That is a heavy distinction there, because for us, play and design are like, that's constant feedback loop between the two of them. Why don't you go first? Well, I marshal my thoughts.
The way that I played.
So a concept that you came across as a player playing a game, you went, ooh, or as a GM, right? That you say, now that I've run this, or even just read it, maybe didn't even run it, and you go, I'm going to handle mysteries differently. I'm going to handle heists differently, whatever. Can you think of something like that?
I think that this is kind of a weird one, because John is so damn innovative. I'm so mad that I don't have his brain. So we're going to be talking about.
It's really good that he's a nice guy.
The way
if he was a prick.
Now it's hard to hate him.
Right.
Exactly.
It's the only thing that mitigates it.
So the way that he handled magic in Blades in the Dark was completely far outside the realm of anything that I'd ever seen in a game before. It's not prescribed, really. It's a conversation shared at the table that you do see in almost all of our games now. We're going to agree as a group kind of how powerful we are and how much we can affect a situation. How big is our power fantasy? Because when I first sat down with Blades, I'm gonna pick the creepy one. There's somebody there's somebody here who can summon ghosts and compel, and that's my character. Thank you very much. But the way that magic was written, to me, it was not explained in a way that I understood immediately. I didn't grok magic. We played a couple sessions of me fumbling awkwardly trying to understand how magic worked. And then it clicked that it's a conversation. I just need buy-in from the group, and then they let me know what I can get away with. And then I can just go have fun with it. And it really lends itself to power fantasy. Like, it really does, because you're not limited to what the spell slot says that you can do. You can do whatever you can get away with, you know, whatever the group agrees is within the bounds of this game, what's feasible. And that was, when that clicked for me, that was so exciting. And we touched on that in Hedge, when we were talking about Hedge and some other games that we've done. And that idea that you can have fun and create the thing that you want. You can have that power fantasy. You can do this outrageous thing. You can have your moment that's not prescribed in the text. The group just has to agree on it, and it won't break the game. It's fine.
The game's
well, it's because of the conversation. Right. It's because of the conversation. And the example, and it's happened to me several times now, running Blades and playing Blades, is we have the Whisperer and they go to their inventory and they go, well, what's a ghost key? Mm-hmm. And you go, I don't know. What is it? Yeah. And then suddenly they go, oh.
What is a vial of electroplasm?
Exactly. It's really, I think that's a great one. That's a great one. How about for you, Shawn? Is there something that you've come across in all your times of just consuming games like this that blew your mind and changed how you looked at it, everything going forward?
So I want to go back just a little ways before I picked up Blades in the Dark. I want to talk about how I was still very much every week we played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition because it was what the group wanted to play. And I'd been running Dungeons & Dragons so long that I could run it in my sleep, and I didn't really even have to engage, and it just kind of rolled out of me. But I picked up on a whim, the same day I picked up Blades in the Dark, actually, I picked up a copy of Dungeon World.
I remember that.
And I read through it, and it was amazing, like how much I had to struggle with Dungeons and Dragons to make it do the things that I knew that the genre wanted it to do, and all the advice that I had, gotten and collected and everything from all over the internet and from these old wizards who had been running the game forever, and it was all just like collated into this book, like all of the agenda items and all of the like GM moves and everything. All of that was stuff that I had been doing, but I never had a system that went with it. But sorry, this is kind of a tangent, because after that book blew my mind, I found a supplement to it called The Perilous Wilds. Have you seen that one? Mm-mm. Okay, so there's a move in Dungeon World called Undertake a Perilous Journey. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I came back from in the time of hex crawls and everything, and making travel interesting has always been one of those like bugaboos, right? Like, well, either we can have the requisite one random encounter, or we can see something interesting, or somebody can, attack the camp, or we can, whatever. So we'll have exactly one interesting thing happen between here and there. And then on the way back, we'll probably have another interesting encounter that happens between here and there. And I'm like, oh my, there has to be a better way.
Right.
So making it player directed, as Undertake a Perilous Journey does. Everybody has their job that they do, and it's great. It works very handily. Sometimes the quartermaster loses track of the food, or sometimes the trailblazer ends up getting you guys lost or something like that. It's really great, right? Somebody and Lord, I'm blanking on the name, the company that did it. It'll come to me. Anyway, The Perilous Wild is on drive-thru. It's all over the place. $8 very well spent. It takes that move and it makes a supplement out of it. So there are new individual moves for each of the roles while you're undertaking a perilous journey. It's got all kinds of awesome roll charts and things like that. That whole system, like, I picked it up and brought it over to the game I was running by the week, and it was amazing how easily it slot into really any kind of like fantasy role-playing game where travel is important. Like, I could take all of these cool ideas and slot them in just without any kind of friction. And that solved a huge problem for me. And then I found John's book, and then I was an idiot again.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I remember reading Forbidden Lands for the first time, Freely's Forbidden Lands, and I remember reading how they handle travel there. And I go, oh, look, somebody read Dungeon World.
Yeah,
because now, granted, they took it in a whole nother way, but you see the seed, right? You see the seed planted by Dungeon World that turns into how Forbidden Lands handles that. I always find it very interesting to know, and we talked on it a little bit with the video game that you mentioned, right? I think it's very fascinating to talk to creators about what they consume. So I would like to know, maybe start with you, Navi. Is there something that has just grabbed onto you and you have not let go? Right? Binge watching, a book you couldn't put down, a video game you couldn't stop playing, a board game you want to hit the table with over and over. Like what has got its claws in you right now?
Right now? Okay. So
recently.
I binge a lot. Like that's what I do. When I find something good, I don't stop watching it until it's all gone. And then I'm deeply sad. I feel like there's something missing in my life suddenly. What was that? I think it was a Korean horror show that I was watching there for a while. I think you wouldn't sit down and watch it with me.
Oh no, I remember this one.
It was so very. Bogasal. I binged oh my gosh, that show to me was so good. It was like a horror soap opera. I don't know how to describe it. And by the end, I was so devastated that it was all gone, that it was over, and they concluded it so nicely and wrapped it up for you that there will never be another season.
Well, it's a show that's got all kinds of themes of reincarnation and finding each other through history and everything, and it's very kind of romantic and elegiac in a way. And
it plays on karma and misunderstandings, because he's hunting her because she ruined his life and made him this immortal. So he's hunting her through her iterations of lives.
Oh my God, that's cool.
And then it turns out, I won't spoil it for you because you have to go watch it now. It was such a good show, and it was one of those things that really got its hooks into me, and it had so much going on, so many interesting. You don't see a lot of that in. I'm gonna be kind of mean here, but a lot of Western shows lately are kind of sticking to a very strict. Yep, like just kind of stamping them out. Lately, my biggest disappointment has been the new Dragon. The new Dragon show House of the Dragon has been a huge disappointment.
There's a lot of laziness happening there. Yeah.
But that one was one, and then I recently binged another really cute show. It was I randomly on a whim decided to get Crunchyroll, that little anime streaming thing. When I was a teenager, I loved that stuff. I devoured it, and I just kind of was feeling nostalgic. And I'm like, I'm gonna go see what's happening in anime. And I found this adorable little show about a girl who ends up having to work. It's very Spirited Away-esque. She has to work in a inn in the spirit world, and of course all the demons want to eat her, and she's trying not to be eaten. Please don't. And it's the cute. It really was a really cute and wholesome kind of fun show that reminded me a lot of Spirited Away. So I binged that one, and again, when I ran out of episodes, I was absolutely bereft. So that's the goofy stuff I'm binging.
How much of this Korean drama and Korean horror have you been watching? Because I have been consuming a good bit of it. And I don't know whether what I'm going to say, I'm trying to figure out why, right? And I haven't fully sussed it out yet. But hearing you talk about your show, which I have not watched, which may happen tonight, I feel like when I watch, and not all of it's good, I've ran into some garbage. When I watch really good Korean suspense horror, especially, I come out the other side a little different. Like it marks me. And I don't know, was that true of that show where I'm not the same person I was at episode 1?
Yes. I suspect it's because they have their own tropes, their own history, their own stories they're bringing, their own mythologies that they're hinting at that are completely unfamiliar. And I went through a similar thing, I guess it's 20 years ago now, when Japanese horror took off here, and we started doing The Ring, and it was the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen because it defied all of the tropes I was accustomed to. And I find that Korean horror really does that. They do a really good job with the slow burn and making you think. The Tale of Two Sisters, it's hard to sleep after watching that one.
The Wailing. Have you seen The Wailing?
I don't think I've seen. Did we? I don't know if I saw that one, but now it's on my list.
You need to go watch it. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. It was a movie that I watched and I was like, I'm not sure what I just saw. I'm not sure I liked it. And now I can't wait to watch it again.
Yep.
Because I had to watch it twice to fully digest what the hell I just watched. In a very good way. In a very good way.
I love that feeling. I haven't had that. Did you ever watch The Fountain? That's actually an American one, but The Fountain, it was one of those movies where I watched it, and at the end, I had no idea what I just witnessed. I was like, the acting was amazing. Everything was beautiful. The story even was wonderful, but how in the hell, what just happened? Like, I did not know. I had to rewatch it to try and form an opinion on what I thought was happening, because they were time jumping and moving through different timelines. And again, this might be a weird thing with me apparently, but again, playing with the idea of immortality, and he's actively through the movie trying to keep his wife alive in different forms. And like at the end, you're like, by the time that he goes supernova I don't understand. There's a tree of life. They're floating through space. What just happened to me?
But it's not confusion, right? But it's not that you're confused or you didn't get it. It's just like,
there's too much
overwhelmed. Yeah.
There's so much happening that like, I need to go back and make sure that I understand what I think just happened.
And we've watched stuff like that before and we discard it, right? You're like, I don't know what the hell that was, and you have no interest. But there's times where you're like, I don't know what the hell I just watched, and I need to watch it again.
It just resonates, right? Like,
it
was the first movie that she said, you have to watch this movie. Like, she had just moved in, and she's like, okay, I need to show you my favorite movie.
Oh, that's cool. So real quick for those listening, we got The Fountain, and the name of the show again was
Bogosol.
All right, very cool. And we'll have links so you guys all know that. How about for you, Shawn? Other than our recycling game, what else have you been all over?
So I typically run a lot of kind of Zen video games that I can kind of just phase out to. Hardspace Shipbreaker is one of those. Cook Serve Delicious is another one. But recently, like, I've been falling into a rabbit hole of JRPGs, like the turn-based tactics, Japanese role-playing games. So I just recently went back and played through Chrono Trigger again. It's on my phone, so I've always got it with me. But the one that really like came out and like grabbed me by the face and was like, you need to play all of this a lot is a game called Octopath Traveler.
Great name.
So Octopath Traveler is a really interesting video game just because it has 8 travelers. That's Octopath, right? And they all have like their own storylines that they're pursuing, their own goals and things like that. But you build the party, and the party, like everybody, it's all asymmetric. Like all of the various roles are very different from each other, but they're all these jobs, like they can teach each other skills and things as they're traveling together. It's got a lot of beautiful music and some pretty amazing voice acting, and like it's a gorgeous game. And Navi, sat me down and she's like, okay, you need to play this for me. Because I have no interest in actually playing the game.
That's the thing that I do. Okay, I admit, like I make him play games.
So she sat me down and she's like, I heard so many good things about this game. And of course, like we're in a mode where we're writing a fantasy heartbreaker right now. But she's like, you need to play through this because I think it's in our pocket right now. Like it's in the same wheelhouse as like we're working. And I started playing it, and like it's such a targeted like assault on my sensibilities. Like it has the old disillusioned soldier. It's got the young idealistic apothecary who's like a wandering doctor. It's got who else?
The spunky merchant, my favorite.
The spunky merchant, yeah. Who like
love her.
She's like 17 and like setting out with like her bag and like her merchant's cap and everything, and like off to go set up shop and like become the best merchant in the world. Like super non-traditional jobs as well. And I loved everything about that game.
Yeah, she robs the mobs. That's my favorite part. She's like, thank you. And I just say that's her move, is taking money from them, and then everybody else actually fights.
Oh, that's great. So guys, as you know, we talked about Hedge, we talked about Skyworthy, all of that's going to be linked down below. But the link at the top, as you scroll down, is going to be to this Kickstarter for Deadbolt, which is going to be going on, depending on when you listen to this, we've only got a few days left. I want to just very quickly, can we walk through the tiers and who the tiers are built for? And then we'll talk about where to find it.
Sure thing. You want to go?
Sure. Okay. All right. So baseline tier is your stripped down kit, gets you everything you need. That's all your PDF stuff. With our Kickstarters, we always kind of try to make sure that there's lots of goodies that come out after the game. So you get the game immediately after the Kickstarter ends, but all the stretch goals that get unlocked, no matter what tier you back at, you get those. We don't withhold any stuff from people. So you get all the goodies. So that's your basic tier. The next tier, the $35 tier, gets you the books, which are printed here in our print shop. They come with they come with like a band around them, which is really handy for keeping them together, and it also allows you to slot them into your bookshelf. I think I have a problem. I go crazy with zines not fitting on the bookshelf. You can't tell what they are. So I find weird little ways like that to make it so that you can actually put them on your bookshelf and see.
I buy the hard case comic book holders. Those card case? Yeah. And then I slot the zines in there for that exact same reason. So as soon as I saw what you guys were doing there, I'm like, that's my money. Go. So after the 35.
So after 35, then you get into the License Pro kit. That's $55 kit. And that is the one that gets you the actual hard-ish cover. If you're familiar with Traveler's notebooks, those leather journals that you can slot staple spine notebooks into, they're really popular with journalers. We call ours the space travelers notebooks. So Midori's obviously going to sue our faces off, but but that's where we got the idea for. So it's this really cool kind of futuristic faux leathery thing that holds all the zines. And again, that one has the name really big and fits really nicely on the bookshelf. And then last tier is the big tier. I think it's $80, and it gets you everything. You get the cool cover, you get the game books, you get the achievement books with all the achievement stickers, because our game is kind of reminiscent of a video game, so we thought it'd be really fun to have achievements. Obviously, you could just take the stickers and do whatever you want with them, but it's also cool to unlock them.
Not your dad.
Exactly. So you get a cool there's achievements and stickers that you get for unlocking the achievements. That's kind of a cool awesome bonus. And then there's some really cool stretch goals. So that Belter journal will help you memorialize your fallen Belters. You'll be able to leave a little blurb about them, what killed them, all that fun stuff.
A bunch of cowboys that turned blue.
So cool.
Nothing but dead cowboys all the way down. Mine will be empty. But
yeah, well, I'm going to get that achievement. So,
and then the black contracts are one of my personal favorite stretch goals that we have. We have a few different ones, so they'll unlock at different tiers. Hopefully, we get to unlock them all because I'm really excited about them. I'm sure they'll probably happen no matter what eventually because we're so stoked about them. But they are scenarios. So after you've beaten the game and you have a Belter that's technically retired, has all their gear, so they're very strong. They know the ships at this point. You go into one of these black contracts, and it's a very specific scenario. So you're no longer playing with the normal prompts. Every module has a very specific prompt. You're playing through a story, and the tension is much higher because there are active threats the moment you step onto the ship, and it's a race to get to your objective, the payday essentially, and get back out alive. And the story being that you're hired basically by the Concordat to do these very special jobs. So you have to get it and you have to get back. If you don't get it, they're going to end you anyways. So it's very high stakes. So we have a couple of those planned. They are spoilers based off of some really popular media. We're going to have the Event Horizon inspired ship. So you're going to have the horror ship that you probably don't want to go down, the aliens inspired ship, and then the Mystery Science Theater, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing the Satellite of Love.
Ooh, nice.
So some really fun stuff with those. And I think the last one is just having fun with the medium, the actual format of zines. The last stretch goal is really just pushing the limits of what we can do in a home studio, embossing, debossing, gold, the gilting and like the gilting the edges and all that kind of fun stuff that we would never do on a normal run. But for a Kickstarter, it's like the moment to do something spectacular. So that's the big one. And that will only, if that does get unlocked, it will only be for the Kickstarter. So no subsequent print runs will have all the glitz and glam.
Yep. That's to celebrate people coming out and believing in us.
So guys, that I'm going to make a prediction. There is what I think is an innovation in this game that I'm just going to tease a little bit, but we'll see how prescient I am. There's an innovation in this game that I think that you're going to see again. I think you're going to see people grab onto this idea and run with it, which is the idea of co-op solo role playing. Go to the Kickstarter, check it out. It's a very interesting idea. It's an idea that you read the first time and go, oh, that's not that different. Then you go, oh, wait a second. And you start digging into it. So I really want everybody to take a minute to go to the Kickstarter and just check out that piece. Even if the solo role playing doesn't interest you, check out this idea of co-op solo role playing. Mark my words, we're going to see a lot more games like that.
I hope so.
Guys, on a Tuesday night, there's a lot of really cool things to do that doesn't involve sitting with me for 2 hours. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time.
It's our pleasure. Like we love being here, Craig. So anytime.
Yep.
And for those of you that listen to the whole thing, I appreciate you too. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to Tabletop Talk and share it with your friends. Check out our content on YouTube and Twitch. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and stay updated on everything coming from Third Floor. All the links are in the show notes. Take care, floorheads.
What do you love?
So to be conscious of time, I want to first check with you guys. We're right at about 90 minutes. Are you guys good for another 30?
We're good.
Okay.
You're our last appointment for the day, Craig.
That's true.
All right, beautiful.
This and bed.
Beautiful.
Maybe I'll sneak in an episode of the new Law and Order show.
I didn't know there was a new one.
Yeah.
God, you know what I've been watching is on Netflix. There's that Echo show. Have you seen that pop up on there? Jesus Christ,
Is it good?
So don't watch it.
Wait,
don't watch it because
yes, watch or don't.
No, just trust me. Don't watch it. I'm hate watching now. I'm hate watching at this point because the first 2 episodes, I was like, oh shit, this is interesting, right? It's a little hokey. The writing's okay. I like her. And then it just went, made a decision, and it was a terrible decision. And now I need to find out what happens, even though it's terrible, and I should stop watching it and stuff. So I just saved you 7 episodes. Like seriously, don't watch it. All right, I'll bring this back.
What's
Navi,
like, let's go outside.
We got dog aggro.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, man, it was such a huge hit at class. I really can't thank you guys enough.
I'm glad, man. That's great.
Yeah, watching those light bulbs go off, man, was really, really neat. And it was neat. I learned the game twice.
Right.
Because, you're learning with them, and they're asking questions I hadn't thought of yet, and then, it's like, you know what? We got 90 minutes. Let's open up the book and find out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yay, we get to open up the book and read a rule.
Yeah, exactly. And by the end of the game, by the end of 90 minutes, everybody has characters. Everybody's taking turns running each other character through it, rolling on the table. It was just so cool.
No, come back. Okay.
Mechanical keyboard, eating headphones.
What's up? I'm going to let that dog in because he's barking his head off.
Yeah.
My dog is so high maintenance tonight.
Great segment. All right, so I'm going to stop. Oh, hey, are you still here? Wow. Well, the episode is over, but if you're bored, why not go to patreon.com and support the show for as little as $1 a month? Yeah, you can just scroll down and get the link. It's Patreon that makes this and all of our other content possible. Don't you want to join the other floorheads on the Patreon Discord? Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Take care. Bye.